people, expansion is happening. And I'm disappointed that there wasn't like a whole 1 year bullshit process of just slowly eliminating expansion bids. It just happened out of the blue. The APL announced that Canberra and Auckland will be joining the A-League competition, not next season, but the season after, 24-25. And following on from that, the season after, there'll be 2 more new teams joining the A-League. And look, we'll have to see how this is executed, and we'll also have to keep in mind that Danny Townsend and the APL are a bunch of fraud, lying cunts. That has to be kept in mind. But overall, it doesn't look too bad. Like, I like the idea of expansion, obviously. Like, it was going to have to happen at some point. And, you know, we haven't really heard anything about it since Western United and MacArthur came into the league. There was, you know, small talk of Canberra getting a team after the last expansion bids went through, but nothing ever came of it. In fact, they actually did say that one of the guys that was involved with the last Canberra bid is, you know, like an intermediary or a consultant with the APL and the expansion bid when it comes to, you know, bringing Canberra into the league. So I guess that's good to hear, because I'm pretty sure last time the only reason Canberra didn't get in was because they weren't going to pay the fee and the FFA wanted more derbies. Those 2 reasons, I think, were why Canberra didn't get in. Let me know if they aren't or there were other reasons, but yeah, those seem like the issues. But before I get into talking about the actual teams and what I like and dislike about each of the, you know, selections, I want to talk about what the APL have actually come out and said, because as mentioned, this came out of the blue, and the APL probably just spouted a bunch of bullshit about how they selected these. I think that really the only reason they selected these is because, you know, they're likely to be able to pay the expansion fee. Like, the investors that they've got snooping around will probably be willing to pay it. And the expansion fee is now $25 million per club. Last time, I believe it was around $20 million for MacArthur and Western. Although, I don't know if they paid that, to be honest, because with COVID, I know they were exempt for a while. So yeah, who knows if they paid it. But yeah, $25 million expansion fee. A-League's fucking, you know, rubbing their fingers at that. Danny Townsend's going to be able to get himself a 3rd car and a 14th fucking home. Yeah, sounds good for him. But, yeah, the APL has assessed criteria across many locations in Australia and New Zealand. And the criteria includes unique fan bases, which, like, I assume is for, like, NPL sides, because, like, what else does that mean? It's not really relevant here because none of these teams exist. Stadiums, which actually is relevant, and I hope it's a bit of a dig at Western United. Fuck them. And the reach of the A-League in the areas assessed. So, like, you know, I'm assuming TV viewership and, you know, merch sales, whatever else they can assess, social media activity and that. Were, you know, that was the criteria that they've base this off. I'm sure there was more, like money. But yeah, that's how they picked these 2. They were head and shoulders, I think was the quote, above the rest of the bids, which kind of makes me sad, because you'd think, like, you know, Wollongong or a Melbourne NPL club would be absolutely banging on the door. Maybe they're more focused on the 2nd division. Maybe there was just a fundamental issue, like lack of money. But yeah, these 2 were apparently the 2 best expansion options. And since, like, there's no actual club yet, like, this isn't a, like, oh, Western United or what were they, West Melbourne Group and, you know, Southwest Sydney. It's not like that. They haven't selected a group that's, you know, set to fund these clubs. It's still quite open as to what can happen, but they are intent on putting teams in these areas by the 24-25 season. And Danny Townsend has come out and said that stakeholders and investors are being looked at before the licenses are awarded, so that you can't just have a government say that, there's going to be a stadium, we're going to allow them to build it, even though I don't think any of these teams will, and then, it's not built in fucking, 5 years time. So yeah, they're still like, sorting things out. This isn't entirely confirmed and set in stone. There's probably not been many contracts signed about this. But yeah, they've got that. And then they've also, or Danny Townsend also said that he likes the idea of any investor. Yeah, we know, Danny. We know you like the idea of any fucking investor. By the way, $25 million expansion fee. They sold 3 grand finals for $12 million, wasn't it? What the fuck? But yeah, he said he's open to any type of investor, like a CFG type. I don't think that's the exact quote, because that would go down poorly. Or, one with more domestic interest, like a local investor or something like that. But, yeah, basically they're open to whatever money they can bring into the game, which is, it's a good thing, but you hope they do their due diligence. Like, we don't really want any more fucking CFGs in the league. I don't think there's anyone that would. Like, most Melbourne City fans want them out of their club, so why the fuck would we want more of those types around? And just to touch on the next round of expansion after this, before I get into the teams, Danny Townsend said that there's a chance that the next round of teams could come from the B League, which is supposed to start up exactly 12 months from now. Not to the day, but to the month. So there could be teams, but he thinks it's unlikely, and it's more likely to pick a team not from there, which I don't like. They're going to be more focused on that. They just won't have the money. And look, here's something, before I actually get into the teams, I think that these are pretty much maybe a Tassie team, but besides that, these are pretty much the last markets that should be targeted with a franchise, because like Sydney FC, Melbourne Victory, Western Sydney, all serve a purpose, right? They're a bit indistinct, but, the culture around those clubs is football and inclusivity. It's football for everyone in the city. There's no nationality tied to it. There's no, predetermined culture tied to it. It's football for everyone. And that's good. That's like an Auckland side would be good, because I'm sure there's tons of, semi-pro sides in Auckland that, could be taken up. But it's important with these and Canberra that, they're inclusive for everyone. But I don't think you can do that in, like, Brisbane, for example. Like, you can't add South Brisbane expansion or whatever it would be called, because you've got Brisbane Raw, and they're supposed to be for everyone. It turns out, if you haven't seen that video on Facebook, I'll try and link it in this video, but it turns out they're mainly for, the elite, the lawyers of the club, and cunts that live in Redcliffe. But, yeah, they're ideally for everyone in Brisbane. So yeah, I don't think like adding a South Brisbane or a Fremantle or another Adelaide franchise would, actually Adelaide was around before the A-League, but you know what I mean. So yeah, Adelaide was around, it was around for like 2 years before the A-League, right? I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying that. But yeah, I think these are kind of two of the last markets you can target before you have to start bringing in actual fucking clubs, because if the club doesn't have a purpose, like if it's just, oh, we're a new club and we get into the first division, we bring nothing to it, like these clubs will bring something to it. The same thing that Sydney, West Sydney, Melbourne Victory and those sort of teams bring. As I said, inclusive football. But yeah, nowhere else in Australia. I think I've made that point. Anyway, let's get on to the teams, and we'll start with Canberra. Canberra's definitely in need of a team. They've got a W League team, and apparently whatever Canberra team comes in, whether it be so it could be a men's version of Canberra United, but it could also be, a local Canberra team coming up, or just, a brand new Canberra team. Apparently they're going to absorb the W League team. I hope that it's Canberra United because of that. Because even though the W League's not that big, and Canberra United probably don't have that many supporters compared to other clubs in the country even, it's still a football club, and it would be an absolute rat shit thing to do to tarnish it because, the men are coming, women fall in line. Like, you don't want to see that happen. So I do hope it's Canberra United that are the men's team as well. I think it would be good. And did I mention the I did mention that there was a consultant. There's a I don't remember what I fucking said already. There's no plan to this. But if I haven't said, there's some dude from the last Canberra bid that's going to be involved in, working around this. And that's good to see because, as I said, maybe it was a good bid. Otherwise, I like the idea of a Canberra team. Great opportunity for an away day. It gives a lot of opportunity for, that fucking 4-hour stretch of existence in between Melbourne and Sydney to have a local team as opposed to having to, pick one of Sydney or Melbourne. I think that there's a lot of potential for Canberra to succeed, and it's an absolute no-brainer that they get a team in the A-League. I'm glad the APL made the right decision here, and I think it's going to be particularly hard for them to fuck up a Canberra team. But, the APL are a special fucking breed. And then Auckland is also alright. I went to Auckland last weekend. Biggest shithole ever. Pick the worst Sydney suburb and expand it. That's Auckland. It is a fucking wank stain of a city. I hate it. I wanted it to be bombed with me in it or with me out of it. Like, my life ambition is to bomb Auckland. It's a fucking shithole, and I'm really disappointed that they're getting a team, actually, because the only saving grace from Auckland away on the weekend is that I never have to fucking go there again. And... within days, they announce Auckland's coming. But they're going to play out of Mount Smart Stadium. They've said that much. I think an Auckland bid also kind of treads on the Knicks' toes a bit because, Wellington and New Zealand's football team, and, there were loads of Wellington fans that were probably from Auckland at the game on the weekend. So, what's going to happen with them? Are they Wellington fans? Are they Auckland fans now? It's kind of treading on toes. But it also gives the Knicks a rivalry in New Zealand, which I think is good because, and a lot of people have basically said, if you're going to have Knicks, have another Kiwi team because, it's weird just having them and they're, a ridiculous trip away from every other team in the league. So that's good, and it engages more of New Zealand in football. It also puts more Sky coverage on TV, which I like because they just nail football coverage. It also allows more early time slot games like 1 p.m. I'm sure the A-League love the idea of, being able to use that time slot on a pretty regular basis. Like if you rotated for the most part, Auckland and Wellington playing in that time slot each week at home, then that would be pretty good. They could have that as a semi-consistent time slot. That's basically my thoughts on both the expansion franchises. So let me know what you think of this out of the blue expansion, Canberra and Auckland joining the A-League. As I said, I like everything they've said so far, but at the end of the day, as we know by Weston and MacArthur, who I'm not sure about, I'm pretty sure Weston, I rated Weston at least because they were going to have their own stadium. It all comes down to the execution, and these could be executed well. I think there's ample opportunity here for this expansion round to be a successful one. So fingers crossed that, this doesn't get botched. And it's good to finally be talking about some good A-League news, even though it's kind of in jest because fuck the APL for the final situation. I hope Danny Townsend dies, and I'll see you next time I make a video. Bye-bye.